So Henri helped me a lot. You know, I've been doing a ton of policy work these days, and he wrote this lovely children's book called Decoding Crypto. And it's going to help me a lot when I talk to U.S. policymakers. And we're going to keep this, and I'll put this right here and make sure I grab it before I leave. Welcome to Paris. Welcome to Blockchain Paris. There's a very strong bond between the United States and France. We owe our country to you. Remember all the great work of de Lafayette in fighting with Washington and valor. For 200 plus years we've been. So it's always a joy to come here. So things are crazy right now. We got tariffs, we got the global economy falling apart, a lot of uncertainty. And I think actually what's happening right now is the greatest example of why we need blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Maybe it's just me, but it shouldn't be the case that a handful of people have the power to destroy the global economy or radically change the global economy. Perhaps this should be a bit more collaborative, decentralized, and perhaps it should be the case that we get rid of middlemen and other power structures. This is not a new idea. We've been talking about this for a while. In fact, in the 1930s, we witnessed the global depression caused by tariffs and over rampant speculation of the 1920s. And it took more than a decade and a world war to kind of get us out of that. And we said, you know what we're going to do is we're going to create a rules-based international order on the back end of this to allow the world to come together in a different way. And unfortunately, as much as we wanted to do that, we still were under what's known as a great powers conflict. No matter what the treaty said, no matter what the law said, the Soviet Union and the United States were basically in charge of the world. And so if the Soviets said something or the US said something, it would go against what the treaty was. Well, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, we actually tried for the first time ever a true rules-based international order. We had the World Trade Organization, the IMF, all these other organizations in the 90s, 2000s. And it kind of sort of worked until it didn't. And then we saw the 2008 banking crisis. And that crisis created so much frustration because they said, you know what we're going to do is we're going to solve the too big to fail. And we're going to regulate the global markets differently by making banks bigger and more centralized. You know, and the cryptocurrency space started that moment in 2008. Came from a lot of ideas in the cypherpunk movement, and there's actually a lot of pioneers still around, like David Chom and others, who basically came up with some ideas of how to create a decentralized ledger, but it took about 30 years of proto-crypto stuff. In fact, at this conference, Adam Back is here. He was part of that movement, amongst others. And Bitcoin was really the first generation. And the problem they were trying to solve was something very simple, deceptively simple, but it was so hard it took 30 years to resolve, which was this idea of decentralized value transfer, a decentralized ledger, email for money. You just push a button, you can send it to anybody you want, you push value to them, and there's no middleman that can stop you or has to regulate that. Seems pretty simple, super hard to do. And nobody believed it actually worked for about 4 years. Around 2013, people started acknowledging, hey, this Bitcoin thing, it's here to stay. We like it. But the thing about finance is never happy. The minute you actually do something, they're like, what else you got? So we needed programmability. And that's really the second generation. Kind of like when JavaScript came to the web browser. We went from these static, beautiful websites with little GIF flames, and cool pictures and things like that, travel blogs, to Amazon and Facebook and all these amazing experiences. Now you couldn't predict ahead of time what these experiences were going to look like and how they would taste, touch, and feel. The creators of JavaScript could possibly imagine all the magical things that were created with it, but that was the point of giving programming language to people. Programming language meant that the web was your dream. So the analogy in the cryptocurrency space is we couldn't predict the types of transactions, the applications, the financial relationships, the contracts between you. But we gave you a smart contract language, and then suddenly you're able to do all these magical, amazing things. And just like when the iPhone came out or any of these other things came out, everybody's extremely excited. They go, wow, yay. And then a year later, they're like, what do you got? You know, what else you got? Same for ChatGPT, same for Skype. It's the same for all these things. It's just the nature of technology. You have this extraordinary hedonic amnesia that kind of works its way through. Okay, great. So then the third generation started percolating up around 2015. And that generation was saying, we like the smart contracts. We like the decentralization. We like the idea of email for money, but it needs to be better, faster, cheaper, so scalable. It needs to talk to everything because we have TradFi and Web3 and 400 million other things. And the other problem is there's a lot of complexity here. So when we want to upgrade or change the product, it's not intrinsically clear how we do that. See, when you have a phone has a manufacturer. The operating system has an author. There is a governance process behind how that evolves and changes. So the new iPhone, you look to Apple, you say, Apple, what's the new feature set going to be? When you look to Microsoft for Windows, you say, what's the next version of Windows going to have? You look to the open source group behind Android, mostly Google and Samsung, you say, what's the new Android going to have? And they can tell you, and they can make that decision, and you take it as a consumer. But in a decentralized protocol, how exactly do you decide what features are priorities and who gets to decide that? How do you upgrade that? Well, governance. It's actually really, really hard in practice because people have conflicts of interest. What if this feature benefits one particular company but harms another company? Who gets to win in that decision? What if this thing knocks you out of compliance in a particular country but puts you in compliance in another country? Which country wins? So we solve this in the open source world, the standards world, through standards bodies like the W3C, but they're not built for products. And typically they are members based with corporate custodians. Okay? So the third generation is really a roll-up of those three ideas. Take the smart contracts, and you take the decentralization, and then you also add scalability, you add interoperability, you add governance. Seems like we have a pretty good list of things. We're at 5 already. Are we done? Well, let's take an inventory of things. You can have financial relationships with each other. Good. At scale. Good. We can talk to each other. We have some interoperability. Good. We can change the protocol and add upgrades to it. Great. But we're actually missing a few things. And that's why we need another generation. Every generation solves a new problem, and it rolls up the ideas of the past generations. So the fourth generation of cryptocurrencies, what that is an acknowledgement that everything in business requires privacy and identity. And if you're a legacy finance person or a legacy regulator or just somebody who's run a business, it's like intrinsically makes sense to you. If you have a restaurant, you want the general public to know how much money is in the cash register. If you are an HR director, do you want to know all the HR complaints and publicly expose them and what you did for your HR settlements? If you're a doctor, you want all your medical records to be public. Kind of common sense. No, you have a private side and a public side. There's no greater example in our industry than stablecoins. So how many people are comfortable with the idea that every time you buy something with a stablecoin, it's forever known by the general public and you can't take it back, whatever you bought? What if you're an institution? If a custodian, whatever your role in life is in the financial world, do you feel comfortable with all that money that you hold on behalf of your customers? Everybody knows when they're withdrawing, when they're depositing, knows what they're doing with it, where they're moving it, they're trading against you in that situation. In some cases, it's against the law. Bank Secrecy Act, there's GDPR, there's HIPAA. Privacy is a basic thing. Privacy requires identity, though, because you have built within it a disclosure regime to the tax authority, to the auditor, to your HR director, whoever it might be. We're missing these fundamental capabilities in cryptocurrency because we've been so focused on open, public, transparent, auditable, immutable ledgers that we forgot, well, we kind of also need auditability, and we also kind of need immutability with private data as well. And it's not a solution just putting it into a server, because what you're basically saying is we'll solve our decentralization problem by having a trusted third party hold on to the private data. What the hell are we doing? What was the point of the last 3 generations? We need these things. But then there's this other issue, which is network effect. There are over 30,000 cryptocurrencies. There's thousands of banks and central banks and financial intermediaries and all these institutions floating around. So it's not good enough just to have private smart contracts. It's not good enough just to have interoperability. But you also need to have an abstraction. You need to have the ability so that people can use your things without moving the network effect. all these events are always the same. The coverings on the chairs, they may change a little bit, although I'm pretty happy about the Ripper covering here. I've known those guys for a long time. Brad's a good friend. But they always tell you, I have this new thing. And all you got to do is like buy the token and migrate all your infrastructure over. And once you do that, we'll live in nirvana. It's great. Oh, and when we didn't solve your problem, there's going to be another new thing with another wrapping on the chair. And just buy a token and transfer over. It'll be great. Okay. Well, how much has that really worked for us? Not really. So you need to have a situation where you can stay on your incumbent infrastructure. You can stay on Ethereum, you can stay on Aptos, you can stay on Solana, you can stay on Sui, you can stay on Bitcoin, and you can just call into something. And it gives you those capabilities. It gives you the privacy. It gives you the identity. It gives you all of these amazing capabilities. And you can pay in your underlying token, whether it be Ether or Bitcoin or Sol. That's the missing part. The problem right now with the way we've done things in the cryptocurrency space is the tokenomics and the market structure are intrinsically adversarial. It's sub-zero. Every single person says, for your token to go up, my token has to go down. For me to be successful, you must lose. You can't build a global ecosystem this way, and you can't win this way. Because here's the thing, the incumbents are much larger. What people fail to understand is within 60 days to 90 days, the United States is probably going to pass a stablecoin bill. And by August to September, we're probably going to pass a market structure. These aren't abstract concepts and ideas. These are the barriers that once removed, mean that Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Apple, and others enter the cryptocurrency space. And tell me, who owns their platforms? They do. It's 3 billion users. So if those barriers are removed, how do we as an industry compete against the wallet that Apple builds and bundles with the iPhone? How do we compete against the wallet that Microsoft builds and bundles with Windows? You really want to compete against that when they have home field advantage? And by the way, they're operating with complete regulatory clarity. It doesn't make a lot of sense, and it does that. It's not really a person you want to pick a fight with when they literally have trillions of dollars and armies of engineers. Like, we will know crypto better than the people that basically run the internet right now and have most of the world's cryptographers and security professionals and engineers working for them. Not smart. Don't pick a fight with a behemoth unless you're prepared to win. So instead of picking a fight, what you have to do is you have to find tokenomics and market structure that allows you to be in a cooperative equilibrium. Meaning that people don't have to migrate from their infrastructure, to the extent you use your infrastructure. So for the past 6 years, this is what we've been thinking about at Input Output. You know, most people know us for Cardano, and there's a lot of really cool and interesting things happening in Cardano. We're not quite done with the third generation yet. We're about halfway through it. Blockchain trilemma is still an open problem. There's still a lot of things that have to be done with interoperability. We don't have the Wi-Fi moment quite yet. You know, we need to figure it out. What type of recursive snark are we going to use? Whatever the standard is, it's a standard. We adopt it. And it's like Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. We use that thing. And governance, we just launched that. It's been 2 years of hell building a decentralized government on Cardano. You know, we had to write a constitution. We had to get all this on-chain people elected and these things. We had people from 50 countries participate, 1,800 people. A lot of work. And there's a lot of other great projects as well doing the exact same thing. Polkadot is exploring Jam. Sui is pursuing the roadmap. Aptos has sardines, Zapdos. Ethereum is trying really hard to upgrade itself and not get killed by these parasitic layer 2s. There's a lot of stuff going on in these ecosystems, and it's very competitive. But you always have to have an eye on where you're going. In the fourth generation, if it's to be successful, it can't have a mindset of it's here to replace the third generation. Rather, it's here to augment them and make them better. So the age of get rid of Ethereum and replace it with something else, what's the Ethereum killer? The age of kill Solana, the age of kill Cardano, whatever these things are, it's over. Now the age of cooperation, stability. So what are the use cases? Why would we want to do this? Well, if you read all the reports, the reality is that the next value wave that's coming into crypto is no longer retail. We've exhausted that well. We've gone as far as we humanly can, and kind of the terminal point of that was meme coins. We saw the end result. It's institutions and real-world assets. It's large-scale TradFi. There's about $10 trillion to $13 trillion estimated by many different organizations that are going to enter the space in the next 5 years to 10 years from real-world assets. Every single one of them has a compliance regime. Requires KYC and AML. Every single one of them requires some acknowledgement of an oversight mechanism. And if you have privacy on chain, you can code all of this, and settlement can be compliance and algorithmically moderated, as opposed to introducing middlemen and third parties. So the fourth generation is kind of the thing that enabled you to bridge TradFi and DeFi and make it just Fi. That's the magic. 90s, we had newspapers, and digital papers. Now we just call it the news. We don't think about newspapers anymore. It's a technology got to that point. And that's where we're going when we talk about the DeFi revolution and the TradFi revolution, is a merger of these two systems. My life's work has always been about decentralization and pushing power to the edges and creating systems where a small group of people can't do what they're doing today to the global economy. I'd like to have a diverse economy where we all play by the same set of rules and it's predictable and stable. And for that to work, we can't sacrifice our principles. For that to work, we have to have technology that protects and enables these types of things. So that's why we created Midnight. So in the remaining time, I'll tell you a little bit about what we're working on, where the industry is going. So in this fourth generation, the first question is, if you want to be non-adversarial, let's do a distribution that's non-adversarial. So instead of getting VCs and ICOs and selling tokens, just give them to people. So in the coming months, we're going to do an airdrop of 37 million people in 8 networks. So if you hold Bitcoin or Ether or Cardano or XRP, congratulations, Ripple, Solana, and a few others, you'll get a drop. Everybody gets a taste. Second, you have to have chain abstraction. It means that if you're in any of these networks, you can use Midnight and pay for it with your own cryptocurrency. Ether, ADA, Bitcoin, whatever you have, you can use. Third, we thought a lot about how to do this in a way where it's future-proofed and upgradable. So we have upgradable snarks. We have a compact language that uses TypeScript as the smart contract language, and a litany of other things under the hood that make it very easy to use. Access. I know some people tried to build dApps on Cardano. The past few years had some struggles. We learned a lot from that. And we admit that there's a better way of doing things sometimes. So we tried to really improve the DevX. And so we actually have a testnet that's running right now. And the cool part about all of this is that the core of it is something called Minotaur. This is really what brings all the chains together. So is it proof of work? Is it proof of stake? Is it proof of history? Is it proof of X? Whatever the heck that is. Actually, it's everything. It's a multi-resource consensus protocol. So when we created Minotaur, we said, wouldn't it be cool to be able to put multiple consensus protocols together and pay block rewards to multiple networks at the same time? Pull that off, it's magical. Because it means the validators of each network, they get paid as well. So the Ethereum validators get paid, the Bitcoin miners can get paid, the Solana validators can get paid, the Cardano stake pool operators can get paid. That's pretty simple, right? You pay the currency you want, and multiple networks are involved in securing the system and have a financial incentive to keep the system around. That's a cooperative equilibrium. Makes sense intrinsically. The other thing is you can mix and match and borrow different consensus algorithms based upon the things you value. Whether it be proof of storage or fast finality or decentralization, you can mix and match these types of things. You start talking about blockchain to blockchain partnerships. As you bring these things through, not only are you offering a service and they can pay in their underlying currency, they also can get a revenue stream from it. They can mine and maintain the system. Automated partners. So that's what we're working on. And in the 20 minutes, I hope you gain a sense of how important this inflection point is. We're here to stay as an industry. No matter what happens, crypto is not going to go anywhere. The question is, who controls it? Do you control it? Do the masses control it? Or does this end up becoming a tightly centralized thing where a small group of exchanges and VCs and infrastructure providers basically run the show? And my belief is that the only way we can get out of this is by embracing a generation that brings everybody together. And that's what we try to do here. It's a product of many years of thinking, my time in the industry, and a lot of love in the industry. And I hope you spend some time to get to learn about it. Ron Barak is here, the CEO of Midnight. We have a product team here as well. As I mentioned, the testnet is running. I just like people to start building on it. And that's why we gave it away instead of actually tried to do an ICO or sell. I just wanted people to use it. And my belief is if we pull this off, then it's going to allow us to continue to decentralize as an industry, and it's going to get rid of TradFi and DeFi and just make finance that works for everybody. And thus we can live in a world that's a little bit more stable, and we can live in a world that actually behaves predictably and has real rules that don't change all of a sudden based upon who's the leader of the week. So thank you all for coming. Paris is an absolutely beautiful place, and this is a fun conference. I think there's about 10,000 people here. And I hope to be able to meet as many of you as possible, shake some hands, and walk through the exhibition area. But unfortunately, it looks like we're out of time. Thank you much.